Okay, so we've covered the variety of skills and qualifications that each institution is looking for. Now we're going to talk about how to apply those to the actual process of submitting applications. So what I can't emphasize enough is when you are applying to institutions this fall or in the future, do your research. Every single institution you apply to, you need to look at specifically at the call for applications, at the institutional website, and I would also recommend doing informational interviews this summer. So the call for applications can have a lot of information in it at times. They'll talk about, oh, sorry, I didn't address this slide. The call for applications will talk about kind of the research load, the teaching load, what kind of students that they serve, and also they'll talk about what specific discipline or fields that you want to fit in. Sorry, the bullet points are incorrect. However, the call for applications can be extremely short, and you'll see, I'll show you an example, and that might not be enough information for you to really make sure that you know what the institution is looking for. So I highly recommend looking at the institutional website. So what that's going to involve is looking at what is the mission of the institution, who are the students that they serve, and how do they integrate research, teaching, and service to serve those students. To ask yourself, what are the policies around tenure and promotion? What, are they looking for someone to be a successful tenure track professor? And this, some people feel like, how do I even know that? This information is publicly available. If you do a Google search, like I'll show you, I did Emory University tenure and promotion policies. It is one of the first few Google responses, and all of those have to be publicly available for the university to share with their faculty so that they know kind of what is the tenure process going to look like. And you can start looking at that now as an applicant to understand how they're going to be evaluating faculty for tenure. It's not always obvious in the application call how many courses you're going to have to teach. So a way that you can look into that is looking at the course catalog and see how many courses are offered by the department. Who is teaching what course? How often do you see someone's name coming up in a course catalog? Are they teaching 2 courses per semester or 4? And also, what are the gaps in the courses they teach? And how can your disciplinary interest fill those gaps that they have? And then lastly, you can look at the institutional website to look at the list of assistant professors to look at who has been hired recently. And their CVs are often associated, like linked to in their faculty page. And you can look at their CV and see what skills and experiences do they have from graduate school and how did they organize that in their CV. I also recommend informational interviews. I think it's important to do these early on this summer when you're thinking about what types of institutions you apply for, because once calls for applications will come out, you might not be able to get a faculty member to agree to talk to you about working at their university or that application process. They might think that that's giving you an unfair advantage. So this summer, before the calls for applications come out from universities, think about the R, RT, and T institution types that you would apply for, and find faculty at those institutions, either through people you know at UT, your faculty or your peers, or just using LinkedIn to see who's faculty at different universities. You can message them by email. Many faculty have their email publicly available on their faculty page, or through LinkedIn. And you can ask them questions about the application process and how they demonstrated fit with a specific university. So I'm going to show you an example of how you can do this research. So this is a job posting from May for a tenure track professor for mathematics at Emory University. Emory is R1. You can see that the job description is pretty short. So they're saying they're looking for a full-time tenure track faculty position in analysis and differential equations. So they're giving a specific subfields that they want this person to fill. They're going to need to conduct research specifically in these areas, teach courses at the undergraduate and graduate levels. Notice they don't say how many courses, serve on department committees, and perform other duties as assigned. This can be kind of vague. What are those faculty specifically going to do? Then they discuss what they're looking for from a candidate. So they ask for an outstanding research ability and a PhD in mathematics. They should have strong records or promise as teachers, and they'll have interests that complement and enhance Emory's current research strengths. And then they list what's required. If you wrote your job application based on this information alone, it is going to be very difficult to really speak to what Emory is actually looking for. You have to do your due diligence to do research on what it is that they want in their candidates. So the ways that you can do this, first, you can look at the website. So I would, for every institution, go to the department website for where you're planning to apply and look at what research is happening, who is doing what research, what publications have been published recently. You can see like what courses have been taught recently and get a sense of sort of what is the breadth of research and how does my research fit in. This is great in that it says specifically what they want your discipline to be, but they might not always say that. They might say they want a professor of anthropology and you're like, what kind of anthropology? So looking at the department website is going to be really helpful to identify gaps. Then looking at tenure. So you can do a Google search. I Google searched Emory University tenure and promotion, and these are some of what came up. A page came up talking about their policies for tenure and promotion, and I did a little more digging into the College of Arts and Sciences, and they have a PowerPoint for faculty who are about to go through the tenure process and what they're going to be evaluated for in that tenure process. So you can use this information to get a sense of what are they expecting out of their tenure track faculty. And then last, you can do your research on specific people. So this is really lucky. This was the first professor I clicked on at Emory. I just wanted an assistant professor, so someone who was hired within like the last 5 or 6 years in the Department of Mathematics. And her name is Maja Taskovic, and she's actually a UT alum. That's complete happenstance. And you see her faculty page has her CV, her publications, and her teaching. And I clicked at her CV, and I can see how she organized her education, her professional experience, her award and funding experience, her teaching experience. And you can see, well, what does the CV look like for someone who recently was hired there? And so she's been working there since, 2019. So she was just hired in the last academic cycle. So I recommend digging deep into these websites. And then reach out to these people for informational interviews before a call for applications goes out. So you won't necessarily know, like I won't know that Emory University is asking for applications this fall, but I know I'm applying to R1 institutions and Emory is an R1, and maybe I can learn some things about the R1 application process by talking to a faculty member at an R1 institution. So I can send an email to Professor Taskovic, whose email is publicly available on her website page, and I can explain, this is really great that she had a PhD from UT Austin because there is a point of connection there. I can do 3 things in my interview. First, why am I reaching out to you? Second, who am I and like what do we have in common? And third, what do I want to learn from you and how can this connection happen? So saying that why interested in her is that she is a professor at Emory University in mathematics and does a combination of research and teaching. Why that's interesting to me is because theoretically I'm applying for faculty positions at R1 and R2 in mathematics, and I want to learn about that application process. What I would like to get from her is that I would like to learn about what it's like to transition from a PhD student at UT Austin to an assistant professor at an R1 university like Emory. I can ask if she would like to chat over phone, Zoom, or email to talk about her personal experience. So I highly recommend you do this with a few people this summer just to get more information on how different institutions will go about the hiring process and how you can best prepare for the application. So in terms of more recommendations and anecdotes from professors on how you can understand what a university is going to expect, Christine Ormsby at Oklahoma says, our promotion and tenure documents are on the website. You can find those documents, they're public documents. You need to read them because they'll make very clear what's required by that college or department. Some institutions have college by college documents. Some institutions have an institutional document. Some are department by department. We have a document that broadly states our expectations of research, teaching, and service. And each department has their own documents that are more specific, like you must publish this frequently in these types of journals. Chris Rios at Baylor says, if the job call is not clear, one of the things you can do is a little research on most recent people who were hired. Find their CVs and reverse engineer it. What kinds of things are the university expecting? Daniel Usera from Austin Community College agrees. When you apply somewhere, you've got to do massive intel. The website is one of your best friends. The department website, the university website, the faculty handbook. Do massive intel gathering before you apply and adjust your cover letter and CV accordingly. So we're going to get into in a minute kind of why doing all this research is necessary. It's really going to come into when you actually create your application documents. But first, I'm going to do a brief summary of these documents. I do want to highlight this workshop is not meant to cover how to write these documents. These documents all have their own specific workshops that we will have later in the summer, and I'll discuss those, where you can learn specifically how to craft each document and get advice or go to an advising appointment to get specific feedback on yours. But looking at application documents, there are 3 types that are almost always requested. So first is the cover letter, sometimes referred to as the academic letter. And it's a couple pages long. It's a way to introduce yourself to the hiring committee, to demonstrate fit with the university. That's incredibly important. And to state your broad research and or teaching goals and kind of summarize what you mentioned in your research statement or teaching statement. Your CV is going to be required, and it will include a combination of different sections that can include contact information, education, research experience, teaching experience, grant funding, awards, leadership and service, mentorship, publications, and invited presentations. You are not going to have all of those sections. For R, RT, or T, you're going to pick and choose based on what the institution is looking for. And you're going to demonstrate that you recognize what the institution is looking for and how you fit it through the order, presentation, and emphasis of your sections of your CV. And then lastly, there are going to be letters of reference, 3 to 4 from advisors or collaborators. It's really important that these letters are strong. One thing I hear over and over again from faculty is that weak or cool letters can kind of kill a job search. If someone does not seem enthusiastic about you and about your potential to become a professor, it's not going to go well with your job search. So really think about who you're going to ask for letters from and what they can say about you. And most importantly, give the letter writer information about what they should write. So tell them what the positions are, what types of institutions, what you think they're looking for, and then also tell them, like, these are 5 things I want you to mention about kind of my work and what I've been doing while you've been advising me. Maybe sort of the publications I've done, the teaching I've done, you know, the collaborations I've done with other faculty, and really spell out for them, like, I want this professor in their letter to mention these types of activities, and I want this other professor in my other reference letter to mention these other experiences. And it's important to ask far in advance because your faculty are going to be writing multiple letters and it's a very intensive process. So start talking to people this summer and have conversations about if they're willing to write you a letter, what you would want them to talk about in the letter. These are application documents that are sometimes requested, and it depends on the institution type. And so that can include a research statement, a teaching statement, and a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. A research statement, I'm going to put out front, we are not offering a workshop on that this year, mainly because it's very discipline specific, but if you wanted to, you could reach out for advice from faculty and peers or from us. We could do a general sort of give general feedback on it. But what they're looking for in the statement is it's a structured essay and it's summarizing past research achievements, current work, and the future research agenda. That future research agenda is going to make up the bulk of the statement. They want you to answer what are your long-term goals for research and discuss how they are realistic in terms of time, feasible with the institutional resources, fundable by external grants, and add to the institution's research repertoire. And it's important to have a clear direction, but be incredibly realistic and not overly ambitious. What can you get done in 5 years with the average amount of funding? Then your teaching statement is going to be more of a narrative essay, and that's going to be discussing your teaching beliefs, discussing techniques and strategies you use to teach, how you evaluate learning in the classroom, and why you think those techniques and strategies are effective. It's going to be a lot more specific, and you're going to provide examples from different courses that you've TA'd or instructed. For RT institutions, you can also use the teaching statement to talk about how you mentor students in research outside of the classroom. And then DEI statements are narrative essays discussing your view of diversity and how diversity and inclusion can be incorporated into education. How do you incorporate it into the classroom? How do you incorporate it into your research topic? How do you incorporate it into how you mentor students? So you're going to be using all this intel that you're gathering from the call for applications, the website, and informational interviews to tailor your documents. So these are examples of documents from UCSF. These are the same person for 2 different types of institutions. So here on the left is applying to an R institution. Here on the right is applying for a T institution. And you see it's going to be different about what sections of the CV they're going to put up front and how they give information on that. So you'll notice in the R institution, they're going to be talking about who their advisors are, what their research has done, how they've been productive, what funding have they secured, and then they're going to talk about specific grants that they've gotten. While a T institution, you're going to be talking about what experience I've had, like what were my responsibilities as an instructor or a teacher, and what did I teach. So when you're looking at these documents, all of the documents, CV, cover letter, statements, you're going to use those documents to describe your background and your future plans in a way that emphasizes how you fit what the institution is looking for. So questions you need to ask when you're writing these documents are, what skills or experiences does this institution prioritize? What gaps in their research or course teaching can you fill? And how do you align with their institutional mission or values? So some more anecdotes from professors on how you stand out as an applicant. Professor Usera from Austin Community College says, you've got to have good design to your CV. How do CVs change from position to position? The rhetoric of CVs lies in order, presentation, and emphasis. If you're going to be a teacher at an institution like a community college, the very first thing that should be on your CV is something related to teaching. The first thing on my CV is teaching interests. And you know what I do? I name the classes that they want filled. I use their language. I don't make it generic. You have to tip the CV toward the position. And then from an R institution, Christine Ormsby says, you need to spend a lot of time on the cover letter. That letter needs to be about Oklahoma State University, U and OSU, not a standard letter where you just change the university name to OSU, and it could have been Penn State or Oregon State or Kentucky State. We can tell when you do that. And what it tells me is that you're not really that interested in the job because you haven't bothered to look at our website. You haven't personalized it in any way, shape, or form to tell us you know who OSU is. Find out what's going on in that college or department. Reference that, how you're going to fit into that college or department.